2 years ago, I reviewed the Fiat Grande Punto. 2 years later, I'm now reviewing its replacement version, the Fiat Punto Evo, and I must say it's definitely advanced. A new set of LED lights, some overdue redesigning, and changes to the interior, which we'll later discuss. But now, let's start the review and see what's what. But first off, I want to give a shout out to the owner of this car, Sam. Like usual, I'll leave his handles in the description box below. Please, if you do have any questions on long-term Fiat Punto ownership, make sure to send him a message and give him a follow on Instagram as well, or leave your questions in the comment section down below. Anyway, time for some facts and figures, and the variant I have in front of me is the 2011 Punto Evo GP with the 1.4 litre petrol engine. It's currently pushing 77 brake horsepower and 85 pounds-foot of torque, and it's got a 4-cylinder engine. Yeah, 4 cylinders in a Super Mini. I find that strange as well. Also, the little Italian Punto tops out at 103 miles per hour. It takes roughly 12.8 seconds to get up to 60 miles per hour. So just a little slower to 60 than its rivals, the Ford Fiesta and Renault Clio. As for price in 2021, well, you can pick up a car like this for less than 3.5 grand, which is pretty good going, as 10 years ago, this was worth anything between 12 to 15 grand. Car tax is roughly £155 a year, and car insurance for a 17-year-old isn't going to cost more than £1 grand and some change. So very cheap car to run overall. Over to the styling, and I remember on the Grande Punto I reviewed, they did a solid job on the front end. But on this one, they've placed a huge plastic piece on the front of it. The rest of the car is very smoothly carved, so much so that there's no hatch to open the boot. Anyway, let's check out the rear seats and see what it's like. Look, I've always wondered, since you could get the Punto Evo in a 3-door variant like this, is it really worth going for the 5-door and taking on that extra weight? You're probably going to argue there's less space in the back, and yes, of course, that is a downside, but are you really losing out on much? Well, let me try getting in the back and see. Right, so if we just push this forward, and we'll go this way first. Ouch, yeah, we're in. Let me pull the front seat all the way back. And yeah, classic Fiat fashion, there is loads of space in the back of it, both for my legs and my head. As for the interior, well, here it is. Unfortunately, since it's an Italian car, I was expecting some weird things here or there, but there's none of that. Instead, you get a little storage pocket on the top of the dash, and in some GP spec cars, you get the Blue and Me infotainment system, which allows you to listen to music using a flash drive via the socket down here. It's a bit outdated for 2021, but it's there if you need. Another interesting feature in the 2011 Fiat Punto Evo is, let's say you get home and it's really dark at night. When you turn off your car and flash the lights once, it should turn the lights on for 30 seconds. It's called Follow Me, and it's a pretty handy feature. Onto something unusual, and it's these plus and minus buttons right down here, right next to my right knee. Now, I thought they'd control the volume, but there's already controls on the steering wheel for that. Instead, it controls the menu, and every time you press the buttons, it makes this really annoying beep noise. Anyway, look, enough of me rambling, let's go for a drive. So the engine we've got in this car is of course, as mentioned, the 1.4 litre petrol engine, but it's the 8-valve, not the 16-valve. Now, this means this car isn't particularly fast. Even though it has a curb weight of 1.1 tons, it's not going to be beating Audi A3s or Golf R's off the line. I mean, Golfs off the line, not Golf R's. It's got a lot of character, this Fiat. It's Italian, it's supposed to have character. And they've just won England in the Euro final, so you know they're doing something right, or maybe England's doing something wrong. Throttle response, it's there, but it's not that good. I mean, of course, it's dictated by the power of the car, and this car doesn't have that much power. Pedals are nicely placed though for heel and toe, but are you really going to be heeling and towing this car? Not really. The steering, of course, it's electric power steering, power assisted even, and you've got two settings. You've got the city mode, which allows you to have more turnability, and then of course the normal mode. Fiat have tried to improve the steering by mounting the power assistance on the steering column instead of the rack, but I don't really think there's been much improvement. Still feels like the Grande Punto that I drove 2 years ago. In terms of the dials, I do get confused sometimes. I've noticed that it goes up in 10, 30, 50. Not suited for British roads, I've got to say. The gearbox in this car is very unique. All the gears are focused or mounted more towards the left side of the car, so you find yourself shifting into 5th gear where you'd think you're usually shifting into 3rd gear. The clutch, it's just had a new clutch replacement, and this car's done around 80,000 miles, so that's something to bear in mind when you are looking for a car like this. I've noticed the Fiat Punto Evo is a very, very nippy car. It's different to a Ford Fiesta or a VW Polo. The more I drive this car, the more I realise that, you know, usually you associate cheapness and flimsiness with Fiat, but honestly, the interior in this car is actually probably better than something like a Renault Clio or, you know, a Ford Fiesta, the main rivals, let's say. It's a car that's now 10 years old, and honestly, it's aged well. It doesn't look 10 years old at all. It looks more or less 5 years old, to be honest. The seats in this car, I drove a Land Rover Discovery Sport 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and honestly, it feels like the cloth version of the seats on this. They're really comfortable. Very nice bolstering on the side, as well as on the bottom base as well. In terms of day-to-day living, this has to be up there. It is such an easy car to live with. It's surprisingly smooth as well. I've realised I'm sitting on the motorway doing 70, and it's a dream. Honestly, it's a dream to drive. And you got to take into note there's a lot of boot space as well in this car. There's a lot of boot space. It's a 3-door car, and the rear seats, even after with all that space in the back, you still get a reasonable amount in the boot. So we haven't spoke about fuel economy yet, and I'm doing roughly 40 mpg, which is really good, to be honest. I've done a little bit of harsh acceleration here or there, but good on the whole. For a full tank of fuel, it costs about 40 quid, 45 quid, which is great for learner drivers or drivers that are just past the test. Oh, it's a car that revs. It just keeps on revving. Just keeps on revving. So funny. It revs up to 5,500 RPM. It's a very revvy engine, I've noticed. This car's also got the start-stop feature, which is great when you're in traffic, as you don't want your engine running for, you know, over prolonged periods of time. And it probably does contribute to how well the fuel economy is in this car. But let's not forget, the start-stop motors in these cars, especially super minis, do wear out. And I owned a Ford Fiesta that had about 110,000 miles on the clock, and after about, you know, after that milestone, I started noticing the starter motor just started to pack in, and that's about 300 quid to replace. Cubby spaces, you've got 1, 2, 3, about 5 cubby spaces. They are only for the smaller bottles, not the big ones, so they don't fit my big water bottle jug type of thing. But it's whatever. I'm not really that bothered about that. I'm nitpicking. And you know a car's good when you start nitpicking about stupid stuff. There's not much engine sound at all in this car. There's not much engine sound. I thought it'd be more raspy, but it's not. It's not that mental. And it's a really hot summer's day today in the UK, reaching 30 odd degrees. Pretty mental. Well, it's saying 20 degrees on here, but I think it's way hotter than that. So that's the in-depth tour and review around the 2011 Fiat Punto Evo. I personally think it's a great budget hatchback for a first driver, and it's something different to what everyone usually goes for, and that's good in my books. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Sound.
Oh, you sound good.
I'm not used to this strange car I've driven.
Yeah.
Swear to God. I've driven loads of cars. This is the strangest car I've driven.